Good morning, folks. The real Captain Kirk here, live from Weather Trends 360 studio here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. Thought we'd talk about these last few days of summer, and yes, I'm going to say the winter word here in August, our winter outlook here toward the end of things. I want to make you hang on a little longer than normal, but I think you'll like it here at the end. I had the little Angelina Kirk in the office today. Doesn't she look awesome in Daddy's chair? I think she should be the new CEO of Weather Trends. So she's working up the winter forecast here in her cute little pink Weather Trends 360 hat. So again, she'll share her winter forecast here with you here at the end. Before we get to winter, we still got, according to meteorologists, got 5 days left of summer. Meteorologists say fall arrives on the September 1st. I'm going with the sun. It says we've got 26 and a half days left, and then about 116 days until we get out toward winter. Before we get out to winter, let's talk about Labor Day weekend here, coming up the last unofficial weekend of summer. Friday through Labor Day, again, big heat wave out in the Midwest. Slowly collapses a bit, then rebuilds in the plains where it gets really hot. I mean, way above 15, 20 degrees above average temperatures. East Coast starts off pretty cool, Great Lakes below normal temperatures, and then gets pretty warm and steamy and sticky as we get toward the Sunday, Monday time frame. Rainfall, again, is heaviest out in the central U.S. We're going to have quite a bit of rain, and if you had to pick the worst spot, probably the central U.S. in terms of a lot of clouds, a lot of rain, heavy rain. East Coast, again, going to be a lot of showers and thunder showers as we get toward the latter half of the weekend. A lot of clouds. Not a washout, not the best, not the worst, but again, you know, it's could be worse. Overall for the U.S., we say it's the warmest in 3 years, about the 6th warmest of the past 30 years. Rainfall is the wettest in 12 years nationally. That would make it the 4th wettest of the past 30 years. So hot and steamy is kind of the trend here for this Labor Day weekend. Real quick recap of Hurricane Lane. We dodged a little bit of a bullet, but not entirely. A lot of folks had some impacts. Big Island of Hawaii had 51.53 inches. That currently makes it the 3rd most rainfall from a tropical system on record in the U.S. Last year, Harvey was the #1 wettest at 60.58 inches from one storm. The second most would actually again be on Hawaii, but on the other end of the Hawaiian Islands, on Kauai, where 1950, they had 52 inches from one storm. So when all is said and done, 51.53, this Lane rainfall may be actually the second most. We don't know yet until they calculate the final data. Peak wind gusts, ironically, was in my backyard of a kid growing up in Hawaii, 74 mile per hour wind gust on Oahu in the Ko'olau Mountains. Now that was up at 2,300 feet. Honolulu was only 44 miles per hour. So again, big difference between the mountains versus the coastal areas. Maui and Oahu, Big Island also had 68 mile per hour wind gusts. The big thing here with this storm, this is the 4th fastest collapse of a hurricane, a Category 3 to a tropical storm, literally overnight. That's pretty epic, again. So that rank is the 4th fastest collapse. Wind shear, southwest wind shear did it in, and that was actually a blessing that it kept it from doing a lot more damage than it could have done on the islands. Now, the next couple weeks, we have to still watch the Pacific. It's about 4 more systems. Atlantic might come to life here. Looks like some systems coming off Africa, and maybe even in the Gulf of Mexico next week. So 4 potential systems in the Atlantic, Pacific over the next couple weeks. Hawaii, again, needs to maybe watch. Hopefully not, but there's something that gets kind of close. And then 2 in the Atlantic. Before we get into our winter outlook, I thought we'd describe what we do with statistics, math, and climate cycles to predict temp, rain, and snow a year out by week, 32 million locations worldwide. Sounds crazy. I think actually traditional meteorology is a little bit more crazy because this is physics. So traditional meteorology is about predicting this storm. If there was just one, that's easy physics. The reality in meteorology is that we have millions of drops in the oceans. We're trying to predict all these interactions, not only at the surface, but all the way up to 100,000 feet. That's chaos, and that's why your forecasts are changing 2 to 4 times a day. It's new physics, new data, new inputs. And so this is a moving target. It's not what we do. Once we've issued a forecast, we don't change it, and that's an important factor. So when we give you the winter outlook here, we're not going to change our minds. So how do you do that? You have to start with a lot of data everywhere in the world. That's trillions upon trillions of metrics to collect all that data. It's 10 million lines of code. It's hundreds of servers to do that, and it's trillions upon trillions of metrics. So it's crazy math. We like to start with statistical math, and that's basically looking at the last 125 years of history on any given day, week, month, season. So if you're looking at a month, let's just say this is March in the Northeast, when you've had really hot Marches, not just warm Marches, really hot Marches, what happens the next year? Well, guess what? Statistics tell us there's about an 86% chance that the next year is very cold. There's about a 94% chance the next year is very snowy. So if you went from warm and dry in March, really warm and dry, it's very common to go cold and snowy. And then it's very common to have 2 cold, snowy ones in a row, as we had here in the Northeast this past year. So that's Statistics 101. The next thing is to layer in a little bit of climate cycles. You've heard of El Nino, La Nina. We're in a weak El Nino Mordecai winter. That tells us something. That tells us we could have a very cold winter in the eastern half of the country of the U.S. and snowy. So that's just one of 24 that we would factor in. In fact, a lot of folks can't even name 24. So a lot of cycles that you'll layer in to tweak those statistics. And that's how we help these big clients. Again, it's a statistical model, doesn't change once we issue it, and it makes it a very stable way to plan. Now, again, we've already seen a taste of winter here in August. You know, we still have, again, 5 days of summer left in theory. And we're already getting our first 1, 2, 3, 4 inches of snow in the higher elevations above 7,000 feet in the Plains, Rockies, up in the Yellowstone Mountains. So again, sign of things to come. So that's why Angelina said, Daddy, let's talk winter. So we're going to do that today. Our winter outlook here is overall. So these are the temp trends, precip trends. Again, it's a El Nino, central-based El Nino Modokai is kind of the trend. That typically makes it very cold and snowy in this part of the country, so the eastern half of the country, maybe even the Rockies. Overall, for the U.S., we would say it's going to be the coldest winter in 5 years. Here's the trend, and here's average in last year. Last year was about 1/10 of a degree below average for the U.S. as a whole, for the 260 major metropolitan areas that we track. So again, pretty big drop going from here to here. For the temperature. So again, coldest in 5 years for the U.S. Snowiest as well in 5 years. Again, last year was here about average. Now this is for the winter snow season, so this would run us from November to March, so a little bit longer than the December through February. These maps are for December through February. So snowfall is more for the seasonal outlook, November to March. And again, that's quite a bit higher. So last year was down here. It was the snowiest in about 4 years. This year is a little bit snowier than that. It'll be the snowiest in 5 years with above average snowfall. And precip, again, is just a little bit more than last year, above average. So again, a lot of excitement here this coming winter. So with that, folks, have a great week. Have a great Labor Day weekend, and we'll be back here next week, Tuesday.